the heading on page 7 of the Examiner on Friday, that is the Cork Examiner, the heading read, "Calvary is coming." I could see that this caption referred to COVID-19 and the current context in the USA. Something in this headline caused a shiver to tremble in my spine. It seemed that Dr. Anthony Fauci, a name that has become synonymous with conversations around COVID-19, was predicting another stringent climb of the COVID summit involving all the pain of Calvary. On a closer read, the article was actually focused on good news about the apparent imminent emergence of a vaccine to help us navigate COVID-19. Dr. Fauci was actually heralding the arrival of the Calvary to drive a monumental undertaking to distribute hundreds of millions of vaccines. The American screenwriter Dean Devlin once remarked, "In tough times, we all hope for knights in shining armour or the Calvary to show up and effect change." St. Francis de Sales poignantly argued that Mount Carmel is the academy of love. Matthew's chapter 25, verses 14 to 30, offers a modern reader a glimpse into the relationship between masters and slaves in the ancient world, between those who legally owned other human beings as property and those whose livelihood and future depended utterly on the approval of their respective owners. At the time of Jesus, there was a buffer group between the governing class and the peasants. These stewards played the vital role of implementing the policies of their masters. They were the agents of redistribution in the economy, in a system where wealth was generated by a seize or squeeze principle. The stewards are the principal collaborators in their masters' exploitative ways. Exploited themselves as slaves, the stewards in the parables are called on to become like their master and grow richer through taking unfair advantage of less fortunate people. The master's designation of the two profiteers as good and trustworthy reflects that his morality is informed by his economics. He praises the stewards because they have succeeded in making him considerably richer. In the speeches of those who gain in the parable, there is no word about the losers, the nameless peasants who account for the named profit. Their story of loss goes unrecognized in the rhetoric of the winners. The third slave is clearly the focus of the parable. He first identifies his lord as harsh, a man whose style of profiteering is indistinguishable from theft, a man who takes what does not belong to him and benefits from the labor of others. The master is wholly uninterested in his slave's fear. The master believes naively that the primary urge to make a profit must overshadow any fear, even if that fear has its base in the exploitation of other people. Transferring the one talent to the hands of the most profitable stewards sets the scene for a classic formulation of exploitative business practice. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. An unprofitable slave who has grown to disapprove of his master's greed and refuses to follow the profiteer's script is dumped onto the scrap heap of life. This is the dramatic lesson to any others that might think of opposing the economy of the exploiter. The third slave may be regarded as a lazy fool for jeopardizing his prospects, which is the dominant view amongst Western interpreters. Or he may be looked upon as a moral hero for daring to break out of the circle of exploitation. In order to have won the original trust of his master, he must have been skilled as a steward. What made him change? The only reason that we are given in the text is that he became fearful of his master's harshness in business dealings. Did this fear lead him to bury the talent as a way of limiting what he feared? His master's power. By taking it out of circulation, by making it unavailable to be used for usurious loans, the third steward's action could be interpreted in a positive light. The third slave is condemned for two reasons. First, he refuses to cooperate further in his rich master's habitual theft. And secondly, he exposes and demystifies the corrupt way his master enriches himself and his household. Both of the third slave's actions are laudable according to the values of Jesus. For the slave neither exploits nor steals, nor does he lend his silent support to the powerful who do both. He, not the rich landowner, is the spokesperson for the moral message of the parable. The third slave suffers not just the disapproval of the elite, but ostracism because of his dangerous activity. Jesus himself also exposes and demystifies the old order of the temple power. Jesus himself pays the ultimate price for taking on the system he exposes. He would be dismissed by the power brokers of that same system into the ultimate outer darkness of death. We sometimes think that the parables are ancient and irrelevant. Yet despite huge advances in science and economics, there is still contemporary plentiful evidence of modern-day slavery, trafficking, corruption, and exploitative business practices. Today's parable remains as relevant today as it was in the time when Jesus shared it. Examples of seize and squeeze economics abound. Morality informed only by economics prevails. The stories of losers are often forgotten and buried. Lazy fool or moral hero? The profile of the third slave continues to fuel debate to this day. Some preachers Today we'll emphasize a focus on developing our gifts and talents. Others will call for a recommitment to campaign against injustice. Words from the dissident Czech playwright Václav Havel combine powerfully to express both angles to today's parable. He writes as follows: "Only by throwing yourself over and over again into the tumult of the world with the intention of making your voice count, only thus will you really become a person." Even the presence of the Calvary doesn't eliminate the possibility of Calvary. Talents justly developed and prophetic voice are integral to the Academy of Love. Amen.